Like so many other Liberal cabinet ministers, when they quit and leave politics, they leave a wave of destruction in their past. Well, David Lametti, our former justice minister, is no different. Hello, I'm Adrienne Batra. With me are Brian Lilley and Warren Kinsella. It has been said, suggested, perhaps by one of you two, that Lametti might be the worst justice minister Canada has ever had. Brian Lilley's putting his hand up. So, Brian, explain.
Well, look, the major legal issue that the government's dealing with right now is medical assistance in dying and a court order to expand that to people with mental illness and other issues that were never part of the original legislation, were never foreseen in how the Supreme Court put out their guardrails. You know, we have medical assistance in dying because the Supreme Court overturned their own precedent in the Carter decision back in 2015. They told the government of the day, Stephen Harper, you've got 12 months to fix this. It took them longer. There was an election in the middle. They finally got the legislation, seemed to fit what the Supreme Court wanted. People immediately challenged it. A lower court in Quebec, the Quebec Superior Court, that's not the Supreme Court of Canada, said, you've got to expand it to all these other things. And Lametti didn't challenge it. He didn't appeal to the Supreme Court, even though this ruling went against Supreme Court precedent. That has caused them all kinds of headaches. You add in things like Bill C-75, where he brought in bail reform and reduced sentences for repeat violent offenders and made it sound like it's all well. You know, some kids make a mistake. I'm sorry, when you're on your third violent gun crime, you're not a kid making a mistake. So that's David Lametti's record. He had to walk back some of his bail reform because every premier in the province said, this is a mess.
Warren, Lametti didn't start out as Canada's justice minister back in the day when the Trudeau government was first elected in 2015. He's the fourth or sixth iteration of cabinet ministers to be appointed in terms of in the justice portfolio. I'm wondering from your perspective, even just through the political lens, even Lametti's exit, it seemed strange.
Yeah, and he he did on his exit. He posted on X. He delisted his account for a few days, and then he sent up a picture of himself looking really, really happy to be jumping off the deck of the Titanic. And
so he had a bow tie and a cup of coffee, smiling.
Yeah. Who can blame him? So we should show people that picture. He does not look like a guy who's unhappy, but he was a guy who never really found his sea legs. You know, and it goes back to the start of his tenure at justice minister. He didn't finish as justice minister. Trudeau kicked him out of cabinet. He was the guy who came in after the scandal over SNC-Lavalin and the abusive treatment that Jody Wilson-Raybould, the previous Attorney General, received. And, you know, there's no question in my mind and the mind of many lawyers and people who've looked at it that the Trudeau government obstructed justice. They attempted to influence the decision of prosecutors in the corruption trial of SNC-Lavalin. They tried to do that 11 times over a period of many months with Jody Wilson-Raybould. She bravely resisted that. And, you know, there's no question in my mind they obstructed justice. They attempted to interfere with the course of justice. And so that was the question many of us had when this former McGill law professor became the new Minister of Justice, whether he would get up on his hind legs and actually be a lawyer and say, this is not on. You know, I need to have an investigation, an arm's length investigation into this. He did not do that. In fact, he defended the conduct of the government. And after that, like, he was just kind of done. Like, he never recovered from the damage that did to his reputation. And I note that he's not returning to McGill. He's going to a law firm where I presume, you know, he'll do kind of lobby work and so on. Mm-hmm. But as I say, he doesn't look unhappy to be leaving, and we're not unhappy that he's leaving.
Well, Brian, just quick last word to you. I mean, put the politics aside for a moment, and just purely for representing Canadians in this position, in particular as Attorney General and Justice Minister. We have expectations that they are going to do right by all of Canada, not just be beholden to their liberal political masters, so to speak. Lametti was the worst of both of them, was he not?
Well, as Warren just described, he was willing to go in there and be fine with obstruction of justice and then defend the government and block things from going through. Remember, during the inquiry into the invocation of the Emergencies Act, he claimed that there was a different definition that they used. The Emergencies Act had a definition of threat to national security. And he's like, well, we didn't use that one. We used a different one. And Justice Rouleau holding the inquiry, well, can we see it? No, that's secret. What? I mean, this guy is, I was worried about him when he came in because he was just an academic. Not to disparage academic, but he was dealing in theory. And I read some of his papers and I thought, this guy, he's not attached to reality. And I think that showed in his work, whether it was SNC-Lavalin, the Emergencies Act inquiry, the bail reform, which was purely an academic think exercise that was tried around the same time in liberal run governments across North America, and they've all walked it back. It took Canada longer because they were wedded to it, but even New York's Democrats said, whoa, we made a mistake there. So the guy's been a disaster beginning, and don't let the door hit you on the way out, David.
Well, I predict that Lametti will not be the last Liberal former cabinet minister or even MP to quit before the next federal election. Well, let us know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button and like and share this video. And go to the TorontoSun.com. You're going to find commentary and coverage there you will not find anywhere else.